Islam Makhachev's legacy at lightweight is looking very, very good going into 2025. He is building quite the run of names for himself. He's had some good wins in his career, you know, like Dan Hooker, like Bobby Green, and then he's mixed in some great top pound-for-pound wins, like Volkanovski and Charles Oliveira, and he's already beaten Arman Tsarukyan before. He's going on to beat him again in January, and I really look forward to that fight because I think a lot of people are writing off Arman Tsarukyan, and I think, you know, Arman is a more dangerous matchup for Islam than people realise. But if Islam Makhachev's able to beat Arman Tsarukyan, I made my 2025 champion predictions or end of year champion predictions where I said Islam Makhachev will be the welterweight champion by the end of 2025. And the reason for that is because I think Belal Muhammad will lose to Shavkat Rakhmonov, and I think that'll open the door for Islam to move up. I don't think Belal beats Shavkat Rakhmonov. I know I get a lot of shit for this because I think people make this mistake. They made the mistake with Belal Muhammad inadvertently. What a word. Wow. Inadvertently, I think is the right way of saying it though, but I'm an idiot, so I don't know. They made the mistake of doing that with Belal Muhammad against Leon Edwards the first time, and they were like, Leon Edwards will surely batter Belal Muhammad this time round. And then Belal Muhammad put on a clinic, you know, and then this time round, Shavkat Rakhmonov, for the first time in his career, doesn't get a finish, goes to a decision. Looks a bit shaky. He does look a bit shaky. It wasn't a full camp, and it wasn't either for Ian Garry. That might have been a different fight. Ian Garry might have won with a full camp. Shavkat might have won with a full camp. But Ian Garry's a very different style for Shavkat and a different problem than Belal Muhammad. And sometimes, you know, and Ian Garry will always give Shavkat Rakhmonov a harder fight than what a Belal Muhammad would, even though Belal is probably a better fighter than Ian Garry in many areas. You know, Belal brings that suffocating pressure. He's got a great jab, he's got a good jab, and he suffocates you with it. He suffocates you with his volume, and he did that against Leon Edwards. The dog is blurring my camera. And I think that could happen here, but the thing with this fight is I think Shavkat Rakhmonov looked bad against Ian Garry, and people are making the mistake of writing him off. I really, really do. And I think he does go in there, and I do think he does beat Belal Muhammad. He's a bad stylistic matchup for him. Shavkat does have good takedown defence. And I think against Ian Garry, I'm not saying he didn't anticipate Garry trying to grapple with him, but I definitely think, you know, Ian Garry's added this layer of offensive grappling to his game to where it caught Shavkat Rakhmonov off guard. And Garry can mix in offensive wrestling differently to Belal, even if it isn't as good. You know, he's a long striker, a tall striker. Shavkat's got to be wary of getting in the range with him. But he did actually win a lot of striking exchanges against Ian Garry. And he did win the fight, and clearly won the fight. It was a good fight. You know, it wasn't an entertaining fight, but it was a competitive fight. But in my mind, he clearly beat Ian Garry. And I think a lot of people are underestimating him going in there against Belal. I think his combination punching, his power punching will win the centre of the octagon. And once Belal gets pushed back on the back foot, I think he's a different fighter. And I think Shavkat stops the takedowns, forces some panic shoots out of Belal, tries to take Belal down out of the clinch. Belal's strength could be a problem, but Shavkat's a big guy too. He's a strong guy, and I think he will beat Belal Muhammad. I do think Shavkat Rakhmonov becomes welterweight champion of the world. Belal's not a young guy either. He's not a young guy either. With Belal Muhammad, I feel bad because I just don't think he is destined to have a long title reign. There's this aura about Shavkat that I think is still there that isn't there for Belal, and I don't want to sound like I'm shitting on Belal. I think Belal had an incredible performance against Leon Edwards, completely took his range away from him. But Shavkat's a different kettle of fish. He's a different kettle of fish. He's not as defensively sound as Leon, but he'll meet Belal in the fire. He'll trade punches with him. He won't fear the takedown of Belal Muhammad. I think Belal's going to have a real hard problem pushing Shavkat back and gaining the respect of Shavkat. But I could be wrong. You know, Belal Muhammad's proven me wrong so many times. I just don't think he beats Shavkat. I don't. And people are writing him off. Kind of yapped on about that matchup though. I think Shavkat beats Belal Muhammad, and then I think Islam Makhachev will fight Shavkat after beating Arman Tsarukyan. So I'm anticipating one title defence out of Islam Makhachev at lightweight next year, and then I think he gets his rightful move up to welterweight, where I think he defeats Shavkat Rakhmonov. And the reason being is I think Shavkat's even a hard matchup for Islam. I think the way I look at this matchup, some people really write off it's Shavkat Rakhmonov now. They really, really do. It's so weird. It is so weird. You know, he had a sloppy-ish performance against Ian Gary, but Ian Gary on short notice is never going to be an easy win. People didn't like Ian Gary, and when Ian Gary actually did well, they were like, oh, Shavkat's overrated. No, Ian Gary's just really good and a really different problem to solve. You know, Shavkat Rakhmanov's a tall guy, a long guy. He's going in there against Islam Makhachev as the longer man. He can keep distance. He's got a lot of power to push Islam on the back foot. He's confident in his grappling. His grappling isn't better than Islam's. Categorically isn't. You know, Islam's grappling's even better than Belal Muhammad. But I guarantee you this, Islam Makhachev has struggled with Volkanovski's strength at lightweight, and he is a former featherweight or a featherweight at the time. Shavkat Rakhmanov's going to be very, very strong and a difficult problem for Islam Makhachev to deal with. You know, Islam's going to have to, against these tall welterweights like Ian Gary, against the tall welterweights like Leon Edwards, against, you know, a Shavkat Rakhmanov, or even the fight wouldn't happen because they trained together, but Belal Muhammad, these long guys, these big guys, are going to be a problem for Islam Makhachev. But I do think Islam is the best fighter in the world. In fact, I know he is. You know, he is the best fighter in the world, except maybe Ilya. But Ilya hasn't done enough yet. He's beat Volkan Max Holloway, but you get what I'm trying to say. Islam Makhachev's the best fighter in the world in my mind. He has good boxing. He has a really, really good jab. I think he has good enough head movement to get away from a lot of Shavkat's shots. The ability to mix it up. His chain wrestling will be a problem for Shavkat. And I think his skill and abilities will outwork Shavkat in a very, very competitive fight. I think Islam Makhachev defeats Shavkat Rakhmanov, and I think he becomes double champion. I think that's his destiny. You know, I really, really do. There's talk of him moving up to middleweight if Belal stays champion. That is an interesting move. I'm not sure what Dricus du Plessis gets out of doing that, in the sense that Dricus du Plessis, if he beats Islam Makhachev, let's just weigh it up here. Islam Makhachev beats Dricus du Plessis. One of the greatest achievements in combat sports history, beats a guy that cuts from 220 pounds down to middleweight, a huge guy. He breaks the plot armour of Dricus du Plessis. That would be insane. He would have to win against Dricus du Plessis through skill alone, and he is a more skilled fighter. But Dricus du Plessis is fucking huge. He's ridiculously powerful. He has rapid combinations. They're unorthodox, but he covers distance really quickly. He has good timing. He has good takedown defence. And against a smaller wrestler, albeit a better wrestler than him, he will be very confident. He can A, get the fight to the ground himself if he wants to, and B, he'll believe he will have no problem stuffing the takedowns of Islam and using his size. Dricus du Plessis is a bad fight for Islam Makhachev. A bad fight for him, just because he's so fast and athletic. If he was a slow middleweight that was way less skilled than Islam, I would say Islam might do it because he's a much more skilled fighter, he's the faster fighter. But Dricus du Plessis is fucking rapid. People underestimate how quick and how fast Dricus du Plessis covers distance, and how athletic he is, and how strong he is. He's huge. He cuts from like 220 pounds. He's huge. Humongous, and he's taller and longer than Islam, so he can work the jab from distance. That's a bad fight for Islam Makhachev. But if Islam could go up and do it, that is unbelievable. That's legendary stuff. But if I'm Dricus du Plessis, I'm weighing it up as Islam gets this legendary status, and wow, what a win for Islam Makhachev, one of the greatest fighters of all time, double champion. He moved up 2 weight classes and won the belt. It's unprecedented. Islam Makhachev, what a fighter, the greatest of all time maybe. And if Dricus du Plessis beats Islam in the way I think he would as well, you could see the size difference. Islam Makhachev's a lightweight, he's not a middleweight, you know. Dricus du Plessis was just too big for him. What does Dricus du Plessis get out of it? What does he get out of it? It's a good name to have on his resume, but although we know Islam Makhachev's a top pound-for-pound fighter, the appeal for Dricus to fight him probably wouldn't be there. You know, I think Dricus du Plessis is a smart guy, and I think he would know the risk to a reward ratio maybe isn't satisfactory enough for him. Maybe he would take the fight, and I'm sure he would if the UFC offered it to him, but I don't know. You know, if Dricus du Plessis beat a Khamzat Chimaev, even though Islam's a pound-for-pound better fighter than Khamzat, that would be more impressive because Khamzat is way bigger and he's a huge threat to Dricus du Plessis compared to an Islam Makhachev. Even though Islam's already a current active champion, it's a big fight, the risk to reward ratio for Dricus really isn't there. So I don't think Islam Makhachev makes that jump. I think he could try one day. You know, if Belal stays champion for a few more years, Islam's going to have to start thinking, how much time have I got left in this game? I know Belal's 37, 38. You know, depending on how long Belal keeps that title, Islam might eventually try it. But I just think Belal Muhammad's time as champion will not be very long. And I think that window will open for Islam Makhachev to step through and send Belal Muhammad to middleweight. I really, really do. I think this might cause a rift between Belal and Islam Makhachev too. Who knows? Because, you know, Belal will want an immediate rematch. Let me tell you, if Shavkat Rakhmonov beats Belal Muhammad by split decision, he still is not getting an immediate rematch. He's not. If Shavkat Rakhmonov beat Belal by disqualification, he's still not getting an immediate rematch. He's just not. Belal is just not getting that immediate rematch. I can guarantee you it. The UFC do not want to give Belal Muhammad that immediate rematch. They'll be like, good title win, see you later. You know, because Belal just gets disrespected by the company all the time. So I really think Islam Makhachev beats Arman Tsarukyan, competitive fight, close fight. Then there'll be talk of him fighting Shavkat Rakhmonov if he beats Belal Muhammad. Shavkat will beat Belal Muhammad in, again, a very competitive fight. And then I think those two will have a mega fight near the end of the year. That is my prediction for Islam Makhachev. Now, we're getting into the point of the video where I've yapped on somehow for 11 minutes or 12 minutes. I do apologise. It's just what we do over here, you know what I mean? I can just let it all out. This is one take too, by the way, so we just let it rip over here, you know what I mean? We just let it rip. I think Islam Makhachev, if he goes up and beats Shavkat Rakhmonov, you are looking at a list of names such as Drew Dober, Thiago Moises, Bobby Green, Dan Hooker, Volkanovski, Charles Oliveira, not in any particular order because I forgot the order, but it is insane. Arman Tsarukyan, and beaten Arman Tsarukyan before. Islam Makhachev's lightweight resume is looking ridiculously good, and people always have Khabib really high in the GOAT debates. Well, Islam is getting there, man. In fact, he might already be there. And it's kind of undisputable or indisputable if he beats Arman Tsarukyan. He might be the lightweight GOAT. His title performances haven't been as dominant. You know, Dustin Poirier had a really good fight with Islam. I think Islam beat a more dangerous version of Dustin than Khabib did. I do, arguably, because that version of Dustin had nothing to lose. Whereas Khabib, he just can't. Dustin was free in that fight. There was like no pressure going into that fight. Whereas Khabib beat prime Dustin. It was a more prime Dustin. I feel like I'm kind of wrong here, but you get what I'm trying to say, I feel like. Hopefully you do. He's got a fantastic resume, Islam, if he beats Arman Tsarukyan. Has to be one of the greatest lightweights of all time. Then if he goes and becomes double champion, something Khabib also didn't do, you've got to look at, if you have Khabib in your top 5, he's got to lose his place for Islam. If you have Khabib near your top 10, he absolutely has to lose his place for Islam. Islam has sort of have to start wedging his way into that top 10 for me. It's really, really interesting to see how this is going to play out. Islam, for the betterment of his career, I know he trains with Belal Muhammad. I know he gets on with Belal Muhammad. And I know loyalty is important to Islam Makhachev, but man, becoming double champion is something you got if you want to become an all-time great. You could do it at lightweight, but I feel like it would be a fantastic career if he becomes double champion, and I think he's more than earned it if he beats Arman Tsarukyan. You lot let me know what you think. I've yapped on here. I do apologise, but why not? Thank you all for watching. Goodbye.